No bigger question has grasped the Destiny lore community more than, is the Witness the Winnower? Ever since the Witness's first appearance in Witch Queen, this question has been asked. And I will be honest, until Lightfall, I too thought they may be one and the same. But I changed my mind when we were shown the Veil. I now believe the Veil to be the Winnower. But I'm not going to go over that a lot in this video. If you'd like to know more, I do have this other video that was shown on Bungie's website that goes over my theory. But now a new question has arisen, and that is the Winnower even real, or just something the Witness created? And I'm gonna be honest, that other video does cover this a little bit, but we have some more additional information with the new Final Shape Collector's Edition lore book, and I feel there is more that needs to be discussed in this area. When trying to figure out if something is real or not, and are two characters the same in a fictional setting, there are some questions we need to ask ourselves. 1. Do the in-universe characters believe them to be real? 2. Do the motivations of two characters line up enough to consider them the same? 3. Do two characters present themselves in the same way? 4. When we learn more about one or both characters, do they line up? And I'm going to add a 5th question for this specific topic that I don't normally ask in these situations. Is the final shape the same for both characters? So if we were to make a Venn diagram of the Winnower and the Witness, they would pretty much have to overlap a good bit to consider them the same. So we'll discuss that throughout this video. And in this video, I will be answering these questions and coming to a conclusion. Before we get into it, I do want to say that I am a lore person who does not believe anything major has been retconned. This word likes to be thrown around a lot, and usually it's due to a person's headcanon not playing out how they thought it would. Nothing major in Destiny canon has ever been retconned. It's just new information came out and our understanding has changed. A real world example of this would be the Earth and solar system were not retconned just because we discovered more information and we changed our understanding from a geocentric solar system to a heliocentric solar system. Having new information presented to you and forcing you to change how you understand a topic is not a retcon. What is a Winnower? For a lot of us, myself included, I had never heard this word until Destiny lore. But I'm sure if you are a farmer, it may very well be a familiar term. The definition of Winnower is to separate chaff from grain by fanning, to separate desirable and undesirable elements. Now, let's start with the first question. Do the in-universe characters believe them to be real? I do understand that even in-game characters have limited understanding and perspectives just as we do. That being said, I still feel this is at the very least a good starting point for this discussion. In the Final Shape Collector's Edition lore book, Ido compiles a lot of information about the Witness, its people, and more. She also writes her own thoughts in the footnotes. Here is one of those introspective moments. I have spoken with Ikora Ray about the texts humans know as the Unveiling. I've tried to reconcile it with how I understand the light and what I know of the Great Machine. My understanding is imperfect, but I have gleaned this much. The Winnower speaks of convincing you that it is right, of existence as truth, of predation and defection. Nowhere does it speak of malice or hatred or despair. It does not care whether you embrace it or curse it. It simply desires to win, and in victory, be validated. But for the Witness, victory alone is not enough. It must ruin all the Great Machine has touched, from the smallest creature to the greatest planet, destroy everything the light has built, drown hope in bitterness. The Witness would have us all curse the Great Machine, refute its gifts, and betray it, as the Black Fleet tramples us underfoot. It would make us all Aramis, sick with despair and crushing our own dreams. Given this, we know that Ido has made a distinction between the Winnower and the Witness, but she goes a little bit further and addresses us directly. You see it too, do you not? The record for Simic's fell, the communications from Talik's sin, these communications set down in hope, in optimism. Once those who came before the Witness saw the Great Machine as hope for the future, as we did, as you do. They had hope once, they lost it, and now their successor, the great merging of their selves, the Witness, seeks to deny that hope any right to exist. This brings us directly to question number 2. Do the motivations of two characters line up enough to consider them the same? We know what the witness's motivations are to enact the final shape, to keep everything the same forever, to destroy all possibilities except the ones they've deemed correct. They want to end all variations of darkness and light that do not line up perfectly with their idea of how they should behave. The witness is that one guy in an LFG who wants to kick you because you aren't using the exact loadout they say is the best. The Winnower's motivations aren't as clear. Looking through the Book of Unveiling, they kinda don't want to actually do anything. They want to watch the universe play itself out, as seen with their disgust at the Gardener wanting to enter the game. They love the idea of survival of the fittest, as we see in their joy over the Vex always winning the game. This is why in the lore page Patternfall, the Winnower says this final line when talking about the Grassy Boy Vex. They are not all mine, not in the way that admirers such as my man Oryx are mine, utterly devoted to the practice of my principle, but some have, nonetheless, found their way home. Oryx's idea of the final shape was the closest to the Winnower's. Those that survive deserve life. But that isn't the witness's idea of the final shape. But we will go more into this in question 5 later. I don't have a segue, so on to question 3. Do two characters present themselves in the same way? Our first introduction to the witness came from the final cutscene of Shadowkeep.
You made it. We have heard your cries for help, and soon we will answer. Who are you? Don't you recognize us? We are not your friend. We are not your enemy. We are your salvation.
We. They keep saying we to our guardian in the Black Garden. And that is how they always present themselves, in the plural, as seen in the final Witch Queen cutscene.
We have seen enough. The children of Soul cry out for salvation.
Once again, we. Not only that, but the witness presents itself as a savior, constantly talking about bringing us salvation, and we need salvation. Literally a god complex. The Winnower has a different way of talking about itself. Not once in the entire Book of Unveiling is the word we used when the Winnower is talking about itself. Some examples are, although I was the closer of flowers and that was my sole purpose, I felt no fear or jealousy. And I looked up in shock. I said, what do you mean? And lastly, I looked at the gardener. I looked at my hands. I discovered the first knife. Always the singular, while the witness is always the plural. Now, the Book of Unveiling and the Shadowkeep cutscene both came out in the same DLC, so I do not think this is just an oversight by Bungie. No retcon here. But even more, not once in the Book of Unveiling is the word salvation ever mentioned. The Winnower does not present itself as a savior. It presents itself as someone who sees things differently and wants to know if it can persuade you to its side. The entire Book of Unveiling is the Winnower trying to explain why they aren't necessarily the bad guy, and things aren't as black and white as we have always thought. The Winnower even spends a couple pages in this book trying to explain why not everything that is a predator is evil. That in the end, all living things are just trying to survive, and some things survive by taking. Even cells in our bodies sometimes kill other cells to protect the body. Thank you for making room in your life for another talking ball. Let me ask you a question. In the 3 billion base pairs of your root species genome, there is a single gene that codes for protein called P53. The name is a mistake. The protein weighs only as much as 47,000 protons, not 53,000. If you were a cell, you would think P53 was a mistake too. It has several coercive functions: to delay the cell's growth, to sterilize the cell when it is old, and to force the cell into self-destruction if it becomes too independent. Would you tolerate a bomb in your body, waiting to detonate if you deviated from the needs of society? However, without P53 as an enforcer, the body's utopian surplus of energy becomes a paradise for cancer. Cells cannot resist the temptation to steal from that surplus. Their genetic morality degrades as tumor suppressors' genes fail. The only way to stop them is by punishment. You now confront the basic problem of morality. It is the alignment of individual incentives with the global needs of the structure. Patterns will participate in a structure only if participation benefits their ability to go on existing. The more successful the structure grows, the more temptation occurs to cheat, and the greater the advantage the cheaters gain over their honest neighbors, and the greater the ability they develop to capture the very laws that should prevent their selfishness. To prevent this, the structure must punish cheaters with a violence that grows in proportion to its own success. My question follows: is P53 an agent of the darkness or the light? That one lore page pretty much breaks down the entire motivations behind itself, that it's not really a bad thing, and that it is a needed construct so there isn't too much life that can't sustain itself, that life needs death to survive. It's a natural product so that life doesn't run uncontrollably. No talk of salvation, no plural pronouns, nothing close to how the witness speaks. Now, the next question is a little bit more tricky. When we learn more about each character, do they line up? Now, the reason why this one is tricky is because we haven't learned more about the Winnower in name. But I feel we can use context clues and reasoning to make a strong assessment that the Veil is the Winnower. In the books of Unveiling, the Winnower is described as the opposite of the Gardener. We know the Traveler is where all light flows from, so the opposite would be where all darkness flows from, which would be the Veil. It even says as much in the Witness origin cutscene.
Their scholars discovered that the Gardener shared a connection with another entity among the stars. They called it the Veil, and when they found it, they arrived to claim it. They already knew much about the light, how it could bend the laws of the universe and create life. But they came to realize that it could bring ruin just as easily. The cosmic events it set in motion could wipe out entire civilizations in a heartbeat, without reason. And so they saw the light, not as a source of prosperity, but of unfettered chaos. By studying the Veil, they came to know the darkness. A power that was shaped by thought and consciousness.
We also know from the Lightfall campaign that all Strand was flowing to and from the Veil. We know for a fact that darkness does not come from the Witness. Savathun herself calls him the voice in the darkness, the entity in the darkness. So the Witness is not a producer of darkness, and therefore cannot be the Gardener Traveler's opposite. The Witness does give gifts to his disciples called luster and resonance, but neither are products of the darkness. While we do not know exactly what either of these two abilities are, luster seems to have healing properties and turns people into weird tree-like things upon death. Resonance is sound waves, or very similar to sound waves. So if there is a Winnower, it is most likely the Veil. Now for the final question. Is the final shape the same for two characters? In the Witness's origin cutscene, we are told what their idea of the final shape is.
And in the darkness, they found the means to carve away the chaos of existence, to calcify it into a final shape. Eternal and perfected.
The Witness wants to basically freeze the universe forever into a perfect moment. Everything the same forever. No more death, no more life. That's their idea of the final shape. Nothing ever changes or moves forward. But what is the Winnower's idea of the final shape in the Book of Unveiling? In the lore page, aptly titled Final Shape, the Winnower says this: "It always ends the same," the Gardener complained. "This one stupid pattern." "Aren't they beautiful?" I asked. as the flowers opened and closed in patterns beyond the scope of entire universes to encode, all devouring, perhaps everlasting. Not even we could know whether a pattern in the flowers would cycle forever or someday halt. They're as dull as carbon monoxide poisoning, the gardener groused, although carbon monoxide did not exist yet, and neither did anything that could be poisoned. The gardener kneeled to flick a patch of sod with her trowel. It struck an open flower, causing it to shut. Although I was the closer of flowers, and that was my sole purpose, I felt no fear or jealousy. We had our assigned domains, and always would. They're majestic, I said. They have no purpose except to subsue all other purposes. There is nothing at the center of them except the will to go on existing, to alter the game to suit their existence. They spare not one sliver of their totality for any other work. They are the end. The pattern corrected the errant flower effortlessly. The great flow went on unchanged. The gardener got up and brushed their knees. Every game we play, this one pattern consumes all the others, wipes out every interesting development. A stupid, boring exploit that cuts off entire possibility spaces from ever arising. There's so much that we'll never get to see because of this pest. They chewed at their cracked lip, which only existed because this is an allegory. I'm going to do something about it, they said. We need a new rule. The Winnower is describing the Vex, the winners of previous garden games. Their idea of the final shape is similar to Oryx's, survival of the fittest. That which remains in the end is the best. There is nothing about freezing existence so that it can no longer move forward. In fact, a lot of the Book of Unveiling is in defense of predators, like I said before, and their need to exist. The Winnower would lose if everything stayed the same forever. So the final shape of the witness cannot exist alongside the Winnower's idea of the final shape. And since none of the disciples even knew what the witness wanted, each one of them had a different idea for the final shape. But Oryx and the Hive were the closest to what the Winnower desired. So why did the witness desire to destroy all those civilizations? Like Ido says in the Final Shape Collector's lore book, they didn't need to. They do it because they are cruel. Anyone that has ideas that do not line up with the witnesses should be destroyed. We can even see this in the Collector's Edition lore when a member of the witnesses race talks about what they did to the others that did not agree with them. My distant friend, I hope you still have your communicator. Though our last parting was acrimonious, and it has been many centuries since I have last seen your message alert gleaming in the corner of my vision, I chose to believe you have not caught this last atomic line between us. I composed this message in secret. The rest of the consensus would not understand. They do not know you as I did, but they could. It is in that hope that I reach towards you now. My friend, the consensus has won. Yesterday the Pendant voted aye. The Nihilists and the Solicists have been destroyed. We will exuviate and shepherd the universe to its final shape. We will prune away its dead branches and coax forth its full potential. Even as I say these words, I feel the old doubts crawling through my thoughts again. But it has been long, and longer still, since you renounced the consensus and set off into the cosmos. You have not seen the violence that visited our shores, a terrible reflection of that ancient history, which we believed was behind us. Though we were steadfast in our position and would have continued to argue it, however long it take, there were dangerous elements, subversives and defectors. We did not strike first, nor did we choose our response lightly. They could not allow defectors and subversives, and anyone that would challenge them or stand in their way needed to be wiped out. They kept this part of them when they merged together. So in conclusion, they have to be separate people, and at the very least a separate idea. The Witnesses people could not have written the Book of Unveiling about themselves. There's too many things that just don't line up with who they are. They may have written it on behalf of the Winnower, but the book itself is not about the witness. And if the gardener exists as we know it does, so does the Winnower. They are side by side in creation of the universe. Two sides of a coin, sisters. Thank you all for watching this video, and a special thank you to my Best Muffin and Above members, Pulse, Prince Mav, Son of a Mitch, and a thank you to my VIP Discord members, Puddles, Amid, Broken Pebbles, Away Galaxy, Pulse, Quick Draws, Sir Hobbit, and SYNJ. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and comment. And remember, hunters never die.
Hunters never was never